For most of the last decade, I have spent every Sunday of the football season sitting elbow to elbow with Rodney Harrison. Fortunately, he has only struck me, I don't know, a handful of times. Really, you've only really got me a couple of times where I was like, man, I can only imagine how it felt when Rodney Harrison brought the full force of his ability on a football field. But Rodney, it's been a strange offseason. I don't know what this season's going to look like, but I have a feeling however it plays out, we're not going to be sitting elbow to elbow for a while, and I'm going to miss that as much as anything.
Yeah, that's one of the toughest parts, Mike, with everything that's going on and not being able to travel and be in studio with you guys. Heck, I'm sitting back last night talking to my wife, just sitting there thinking, like, how the heck are we going to even play football? If you think about the NFL and they say that the best interest of the players is to be safe, and you're doing everything to protect the players, I just don't know how you put the players back on the football field with this virus and not having a vaccine for it.
Yeah, Rodney, one of the things that was jarring to me when the protocols came out a few weeks ago that the league was putting together for all of the things they need to do in the facility and in the locker room and on the sideline, keeping everyone separate. Well, at some point, you're going to cross that thick white line and you go onto the field. It's going to be 22 guys in a scrum. I can't reconcile that. And I think players are starting to realize as we get closer and closer to the start of training camp on July 28th, it's not going to be the easiest thing to do if you're obsessed with keeping everyone apart until it's time to practice or play. But then when you practice or play, you can't keep them apart.
Well, everything the CDC has said talked about 6 feet away, making sure you wear your mask and making sure that you stay inside the house. Guess what? Football, you have to breathe on people. You have to tackle people. You spit on people. Guys have cuts, guys cough out there. You can't tell me if I have 2 or 3 kids at home or an elderly parent that lives with me that I'm going to be comfortable going out there practicing entire week, not knowing what the young guys, not knowing what the old guys are going to do after practice, going to restaurants and things like that. I'm not going to feel comfortable coming home to my family when I have kids and things like that. It's just, I don't know how we're going to have a season, bottom line, Mike. I don't know how they're going to do it.
And Rodney, as you say that, I'm reminded there's been a sense for the past few months that when it comes down to it, football players won't worry about that. On the list of things that they need to be concerned about on the football field, possibly catching the coronavirus isn't even in the top 10. You've got far more immediate risks that you take. But I'm starting to get the sense that players are feeling the way that you just explained it, that they're not just football robots that just have to play football and throw everything else aside. I think a lot of players are taking a more responsible view of this, that even if it doesn't affect me, even if it doesn't sicken me, even if it doesn't kill me, this act of being on the football field is potentially contributing to the spread of a virus that endangers vulnerable people, whether they're in your family, whether they're not in your family. And I sense a lot of players are starting to at least pause and look at the broader picture of whether or not this can make sense until we do get to the point that we get it under control.
Well, and the big thing that, no one's really talking about is, a lot of these players, the ones that need the money, that actually need the check, a lot of those guys, they're going to want to play. If I needed the money, I'm like, hey, put me on a football field. I don't care what I have to do in order to get that check. But the game has changed. These guys are getting paid so much money. They don't have to go on a football field because they're making tens and tens of millions of dollars. And for me, Mike, if I was one of those players, even if I'm making a lot of money, I would not want to go out there, man. It's just so many unknowns. And think about the anxiety levels. It's so much to worry about trying to stop Patrick Mahomes. How do you fend the tight end? How do you stop Tyreek Hill? But you can't even focus on those things because you're focused on your health. You're looking around a locker room. You walk in the locker room, you're very cautious. If a guy coughs, you're looking at him strange. So already your attention has been taken away on the things that you need to focus on. And I just don't know how you comfortably, like Tom Brady, he's out there practicing. He says the only thing you fear is fear itself. But yeah, you could say that, Tom, because you're probably the healthiest guy in the National Football League. But for most players, they don't have the type of strict diet, the type of strict regimen that he has. So to me, it's going to be wide open season. You're going to see everyone catching this virus.
And Rodney, you raised an excellent point that I hadn't previously considered. We hear all the time about distractions in the locker room, things that take you away from your focus, things that keep you from doing your job as Bill Belichick wants his players to do. This is the ultimate distraction. This is the ultimate disruption to the routine of a football team, and even beyond the mechanical disruption, keeping apart, wearing masks, having the locker room spread out, as you said, and I think you nailed it, you're going to be worried about it. You're going to be thinking about it. You're going to be carrying that burden around when you otherwise would be fully focused on your craft. And I think it's going to keep it, it's going to make it more difficult for guys to be fully focused on their craft, because part of their brain is constantly going to be thinking about, am I going to get it? If I get it, who in my family is going to get it? How long will I have it until I know I have it? What's it going to do to me? What's it going to do to others? How do I avoid it? All that stuff spinning around is just chewing up space that otherwise would be focused on being the best football player you can be.
And think about this, Mike. Think about the coaches in our league. Yeah, we have a lot of young head coaches, but we still have a lot of older coaches in their 50s, in their 60s, trying to stay healthy. So my concern is not just for the players who are young and strong and 20-something years old, but I'm looking at those coaches that are in their 50s, in their 60s. And it'll be devastating to all. You cannot tell me, and I have a high school junior. My son is a junior in high school, and I'm taking him back and forth to workouts, and I see all the social distances. Well, eventually that's got to go away. What's changed within the last 3.5, 4 months since we've seen this pandemic? What's changed, Mike? We don't have a vaccine. All we're basically seeing out here in Atlanta, Georgia, is people saying, screw it. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to go to bars. I'm going to play. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to go to the malls. I'm going to the store, the grocery store. I'm going to just live my life as normal. And you see the numbers across the nation just continuously going up, Mike.
And Rodney, I didn't expect there to be a vaccine anytime this year, but what I did expect by August or September, reliable testing, quick testing, basically a little room that you go into before you ever get into the team facility where you get your mouth swabbed or you get your finger pricked, and you know within 5 or 10 minutes whether or not you're positive. And you get tested before you ever go in. Maybe you get tested on the way out in the event that you've developed from negative to positive while you've been at work for 12 hours. And they're constantly monitoring and constantly testing and constantly aware of who's negative and who's positive, and whoever's positive gets quarantined. But I feel like we're not going to be there. I thought we were going to be there. But if you don't have the ability to test guys every single day, if you don't have that peace of mind that everybody who is in that locker room, everybody who's in that facility has tested negative before they got through the door, that contributes to what you were saying earlier. You're just going to be worried about it. And then eventually you got to go out on the practice field. Eventually you got to go out into a game situation, and you don't know a damn thing about what other teams are doing to ensure that their guys are negative as well. And like anything else, once a bug gets into the locker room, it's a petri dish. It's going to spread like wildfire. And I don't have the confidence that I thought I'd have at this point that they're going to have that under control.
Yeah, and competitively, it's an unfair advantage. I mean, if Atlanta's playing against Tampa Bay and Matt Ryan comes down with coronavirus, then guess what? The Falcons probably won't have a chance of even beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just don't know, with everything that's going on, uncertainty, the players, the paranoia, the anxiety, the risk. If you're in the National Football League, if you're college, even if you're high school or grade school, you're not doing what's in the best interest of these young men, putting them back out on the football field, and we don't know what's going to happen to them. And before, it was just African Americans and older people getting it. Now we're seeing young people get it. I mean, young people all across the country get this virus.
And the thing is, Rodney, at the lower levels of football, the money isn't there to justify even trying. The higher we go on the ladder, college and pro, especially at the NFL level, the money from the TV contracts is so significant that I feel like they're determined to find a way to make it happen. And if it means half the team is quarantined for 3 weeks and we got to find replacements, so be it. Remember, in 1987, hey, they had no qualms about going out and getting 28 teams of replacement players when the players went on strike. And I think that's part of what the owners will be willing to do, which I think introduces a whole new set of factors when you're considering that all of a sudden your $35 million a year quarterback is being protected by a guy that they just scraped off of a couch who hasn't played in 3 years because they're down that far on the list of available free agents. But I feel like that's what they're going to do, that there's always going to be a guy out there who will say, yes, I'll play, sign me up. And you're going to have a huge difference potentially between the best players and the worst players who are on the field at a given time. That introduces a different level of risk.
Absolutely. I almost was just sitting here thinking as you were talking, maybe what you do is instead of having a 16-week season or a 17-week season, maybe shorten it. Maybe shorten the season to 10 or 11 games. So therefore, you alleviate a lot of the risks. I mean, it's still going to be risks out there in 10 games, but not 16 games, and maybe that's a remedy, but I still don't think that's going to even work because we don't have a vaccine. These guys are still coming to close proximity with one another. They're still tackling each other. And think about it too. If I'm a DB and I'm known to kind of cover, if I see a running back coming up the middle of the field, I'm not going to want to hit him. I'm not going to want to touch him because I'm afraid that with all that sweat and blood coming off of him, I'm not going to hit this guy. I'm just going to let him go. So it just raises so many questions, Mike.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And one of the biggest problems, as you mentioned, people just act like they don't care, like it's not a thing. And it's, by all appearances, worse now than it was when we shut the whole country down in March. But the attitude is, so be it, I'm going to live my life. And meanwhile, the numbers keep going up and up. And some of these players are going to have to go into cities and states where the numbers are skyrocketing. And I think we are. I thought there would be very few players who tap out, who say, I'm just not doing it this year. I think it's going to be more than I originally believed. And I won't be surprised if plenty of guys ultimately say, especially the guys who have made a lot of money, don't need that extra money, and are willing to forego a season of potentially significant money to conscientiously decide, I'm not doing it this year. I'll be back in 2021. I think it's going to be a bigger number than I ever would have imagined.
I think so too, because like I said before, the game has changed. These players are making so much money, and now they're at a point where they can come out, they can speak out. See, it's like when I came in the league, when I was, say, if I was a safety and I was making $1 million or $2 million, these guys are making 10, 12, 14 million bucks a year. So it's not like they have to play. You know what I mean? They have so much money in the bank. They have so much revenue and finance. And, a lot of these guys have done well with their money. They don't have to feel like they're forced to come back on the football field.
Well, Rodney, I thought of you on Sunday night when I saw that Cam Newton had signed with the Patriots. It's a similar approach to what happened with you. You establish your career as a star player with one team. That team decides to move on, and in comes Bill Belichick, recognizing that there's still a ton of ability, a ton of talent, and plenty of ways that a great player can help a team stay great. What was your reaction?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it, Mike, because on May 28th, I did an interview with Rich Eisen, and he asked me the same question about Cam Newton. I said, I was very disappointed in the Patriots for not even pursuing Cam Newton. How could you not pursue a guy that has been the MVP, played in the Super Bowl, a guy that's motivated? This is a Bill Belichick type guy. And he goes get guys that are disgruntled, guys that are motivated, guys that really felt like they've been treated wrong by the previous organization. Cam Newton is a perfect, and then Cam comes in, he can challenge the young guy, Jared Stidham. He can teach him a few things, but also think about this. Josh McDaniels, outside of Tim Tebow, he has not had a guy like Cam Newton. Cam is big. He puts a lot of pressure on the defense. Now, Lamar Jackson just won the MVP as a scrambling quarterback. Cam Newton brings that threat at 6'5", 255 pounds. I mean, it's a big dude. And think about it. If I'm Stephon Gilmore, if I'm one of the McCourty brothers, I had just a glimmer of hope with Jared Stidham. Now I know we can win a Super Bowl. Now I know we can get back in the AFC Championship, because I think Josh McDaniels, he's going to adjust a lot of different things for Cam.
And the key is whether or not Cam Newton's healthy, but let's assume for these purposes that he is. I think where Cam makes a difference for that New England offense, and it's one of the reasons I think that we've seen mobile quarterbacks have success against the New England defense. You've got the play that gets called, and if the defense matches it well enough, the play that gets called isn't going anywhere. Well, when you have a guy with Cam's skill sets, he can make up something on the fly, and maybe those defensive players aren't good enough to keep up with whatever Cam tries to do if the walls close in and he's got to improvise. And that's what we've seen him do. That's what we've seen some of today's great quarterbacks do. And there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that can't do that. That if it doesn't work, if the defense guessed right and the play doesn't work, it's over. Cam can extend that and make things happen. And that's an element that really the Patriots haven't had with Tom Brady. He does a great job running the play that's called, but he's never been a guy who can make chicken salad in one of those situations where everything falls apart. He's got to throw it away, or he's got to just take the sack and move on to the next play. Cam can make something happen. That makes the offense even more dangerous.
Cam is at his very best. We saw in Carolina, Mike, when they were able to establish the run. And that's what the Patriots like to do. As much as they try to undress everything and try to hide it as though they're a passing team, the one thing that Belichick always talks about is establishing the run. We have to control the line of scrimmage. If they're able to run the football, use play-action pass, get Cam into the quick passing game to avoid hits, Belichick's going to emphasize, Cam, we need you to slide. We need you to get down. We don't need your tough guy act. We already know that you're a tough guy. Slide, get down. We need to see you for the next play. I think all those things kind of come into play. Look at Josh McDaniels. I mean, he should be happy. He should be the happiest man because now he has a talent that he's never had before. And he gets a guy like Cam is hungry. And let me tell you this, Mike, when you've played 9 years in one particular organization and someone gives you an opportunity, Coach Belichick gave him an opportunity just like he gave me an opportunity. You don't forget that. You don't forget that. Cam's made over $100 million in his career. The money will come later. He's not worried about that. He wants an opportunity to go out there and play. And I tell you this, he's fighting for his career, Cam is, and he understands that. If you can't beat Jarrett Stidham out, then Cam Newton is going to be a career backup. If you cannot beat Jarrett Stidham out for the starting job of New England Patriots quarterback, you're going to be a career backup. So Cam is not only playing for a contract, he's playing for his career.
I sense some of that same passion that you would have had back when you joined the Patriots after the Chargers cut you. Bill Belichick gave you that chance. You flourished in that system. But there's a huge difference between Rodney Harrison and Cam Newton. Cam Newton's always been the face of the team. Cam Newton's been that giant personality. What advice would you have for him walking into a locker room where it's clear that they don't want anyone to be the face of the team? They don't want anyone to have the personality that sucks all the oxygen out of the room, that you're just one of the guys and the message is do your job.
Well, I think all of us, all the guys that have come in, I think when you go to the Patriots, it's almost like a rehab. You come in, you learn teamwork, you learn discipline, you learn unselfishness. And I think we all had to learn that to a certain degree, whether it's me, Randy Moss, Corey Dillon, all the guys that he brought in, Larry Centers, all the great players that he brought in. And this is the same thing with Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton has so much respect for Coach Belichick. First of all, if he didn't have respect for him, he would have never signed up. But he has so much respect for Coach Belichick, and he understands that, hey, I just want to fit in. Now he has positive structure. He knows he's going to have a good defense. He's got excellent coaching. He's got a great offensive coordinator. He's got all the pieces around him, and he's got a coach that's going to be committed to running the football, committed to making sure that he's protected. They got a few weapons around him. But Mike, at the end of the day, I do believe that they're going to try to establish the run game, do the quick passing game, take some shots down the field, and rely on that defense and keep Cam from get hit a lot.
You mentioned Randy Moss, and that's one of the ultimate gambles Coach Belichick made. By 2007, a lot of people thought Moss was washed up. He had 2 mediocre seasons in Oakland after he was traded by the Vikings. When he came into the locker room, was he already all in? Just the fact that Bill Belichick showed faith in him, that he respects Bill Belichick, or was there a requirement, a necessity by the veteran leadership to make sure Randy Moss didn't do some of the things that maybe he did earlier in his career that got him in trouble?
You know, a guy that has a bad reputation, if he walks in the locker room, I think it's human nature to kind of just assume that he's going to be like that. But Randy was a fantastic teammate. He worked his butt off. You always saw him in the training room. You always saw him in the weight room. You always saw him just doing positive things, talking to people. Randy was not a distraction. And when he was on the practice field, he worked his butt off. I mean, he was a perfect teammate. So anything that he had done in his previous time, whether it was Oakland or wherever he's been, Minnesota, that was all erased because he was like the perfect teammate.
Now, let's assume that, and I don't want to assume, I'm not rooting for this to happen, but let's explore the possibility that Cam either isn't healthy or he can't beat out Jarrett Stidham and it just doesn't work. And maybe before the start of the season, he gets released. What does this experience do to undermine Jarrett Stidham if he ends up being the week 1 starter? in my mind, that's the risk they're taking here, that if it doesn't work, they've set back the development of the guy who's going to end up taking over as the successor to Tom Brady.
Nah, I don't see it that way. I see it as, when you're faced with adversity and competition, let's see what Jarrett Stidham has in him. See if he's able to step up. See if he can handle the pressure, because ultimately it's going to be a lot more pressure playing for the New England Patriots and being the starting quarterback than just playing against Cam Newton and competing against him. So if I'm Jarrett Stidham, I'm looking at as an opportunity to compete against Cam, but not only just compete against Cam, to go out here and show my teammates what I'm truly capable of doing. And I think this is an opportunity for him to learn, for him to sit back and understand that, hey, there's always going to be guys that they bring in. You're never just going to be the starting quarterback. They're going to always rotate guys in because they're always looking for bigger, better, and cheaper.
And that's an excellent point. They always drafted quarterbacks when Tom Brady was there. The Jimmy Garoppolo draft pick, I think, lit a fire under Tom Brady that carried them to 3 more Super Bowl wins. And maybe this does push Jarrett Stidham to a level he otherwise wouldn't have been at. Maybe it is the proverbial good problem to have that both guys are playing at a high level and they have a hard time picking between the two of them. Then they at least know they've got 2 great quarterbacks that they can move forward with. That's another excellent point. It really is a no-lose proposition for Bill Belichick. Cam Newton may be great. Jarrett Stidham may step up. Either way, more numbers at the most important position on the field as they try to move forward without Tom Brady.
And think about this, too, being a veteran, you put so much pressure on yourself. If I was a veteran defensive player, if I was McCourty or Stephon Gilmore saying, hey, guys, we got to really step it up. We got basically a rookie coming in and being a starting quarterback. So there's a certain level of concern that you concern yourself with the offense, even as a defensive player. But with Cam, you're thinking, okay, I know what Cam can do. I know how physical he is. I know what he brings, the energy, the emotion, just everything. Like, I would be so excited. And I was talking to a friend yesterday, and they said they heard the McCourty brothers on their podcast. And as soon as they heard the news of Cam Newton, they just got really pumped up and really excited. Like, players in this league, they know who can make a difference. Even though Jarrett Stidham, is their teammate, they're looking at him like, you haven't done anything. You haven't proven yourself. Like, we're heading toward the end of our career. We can't afford to go 8-8, 9-7. With Cam Newton, we know we have a chance to get back to that AFC Championship game and make a run.
Yeah, I can only imagine how excited the players are. It excites me for the season. And to bring it back full circle, Rodney, I'm reminded there may not be a season. I hope there is. This is another reason to hope there is. We want to see Cam Newton on the field. We want to see what the Patriots do post Tom Brady. And I can only hope that the people who are in charge of the sport have a good plan that not only covers all of the bases and minimizes the spread of the virus, but helps the players get to the point where they're comfortable, where they're confident, where they're not carrying around that baggage you were talking about earlier.
It won't happen, Mike.
The big concern I have now, Rodney, is whatever the league is doing behind the curtain, they're not sharing it with enough people so that we can get to the point where
they don't know what to do, Mike. They don't know what to do, Mike. What can they do? Like, all the social distancing guidelines you can do, but once you enter on that football field, they all go out the window. Like, am I like the only one that's seeing this? Like, how could you even think about having a football season? Yes, I want football. I want to talk every week and watch these games and see what's going on. But at the end of the day, you can't be safe and have a football season. It's still sweating. It's still blood. It's still guys spitting on you, guys getting up off you, shoving their sweaty forearms in your throat, guys talking smack and spitting in your face directly. It's no way you're going to be able to have football without guys getting infected. That's what it is.
Point. And here's what they're banking on, Rodney. They're banking on their belief that the virus primarily spreads indoors in confined spaces, bars and restaurants, etc. And when you're in an open air environment or even in a dome where the air system has the proper ventilation to recirculate the air and not enhance the risk, that they believe that when you get in that setting, it'll be okay. Well, that's one hell of a gamble. That's one hell of a roll of the dice. And we're going to find out by the middle of September whether or not that roll of the dice works out.
Mike, I don't have anything else to say about it because I just don't think we're going to have football. We'll sit back and see what happens. But I think we're going to be sitting here in September looking at each other like, wow, they just canceled the first 4 games. Or I think it'd be crazy for them to even try to go out there and play right now.
Well, here's hoping that they have a plan and that they can make it work and that they can make the players feel comfortable and safe. And Rodney, I hope it happens just because I want to talk to you every week. Even if we aren't sitting elbow to elbow, we'll be putting together the pregame show before every Sunday night game. So I want football. I want to work with you. I want to talk to you again soon, and maybe we'll do this as we get closer to the season. We have a better idea of how things are going. I appreciate your time, pal, and we'll talk to you again.
No doubt, Mike. Thanks, man. It's always good to talk to you. See you later.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.